Hello, I think we're live. Yeah, I think we're live. Yeah, cool. Hello, everybody. My name is Colin Turner from the Free World Charter. I'm joined. Welcome to our first live Q&A, our first video broadcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you would do us a favor and subscribe. We're hoping to make a few more of these Q&A sessions or discussions online. If it goes well, we'd like to make a series of it. So please subscribe, and you can find out as soon as they're happening, whenever they're happening. Okay, so my name is Colin Turner. I'm joined by two very esteemed gentlemen here from the Money Free Party. One is Nick Tapping and Richard Osmaston from UK and New Zealand, respectively. Maybe both you guys would like to just give us a couple of words about yourselves and where you are and where you're coming from, and we can start taking from there. You want to go ahead, Nick?
Okay, I would sort of query that esteemed and knowledgeable person. I belong to the Money Free Party, which is a political party. Actually, is very popular among everybody. Political parties, not. So that's where I'm coming from. I've been aware and been promoting Money Free World for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years now. So I've probably gone through most of the arguments, and that's why people like Colin, the good man, thinking I'm a professional. But we'll see how it goes. Looking forward to your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of users have already submitted questions there to the page, which is great. We'll get through them one by one. We're sort of on different sides of the planet here. We're having a couple of connection problems. We will be joined later by Rafi Oneness, who's in Canada, and he's a very interesting guy who has a lot to say. Richard there from New Zealand has just dropped out. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Colin Turner. If you don't know me, I'm a guy who founded a thing called the Free World Charter, which has been going for a few years. And it's essentially just a set of 10 basic principles that we try and get people to agree to, in as much as creating a new social contract for society, really. And we're kind of coming from the view that the way that society works as it is completely unequal. What the Free World Charter is trying to propose is to try and create a new social contract with a more reasonable foundation for building a better society. Actually, at the moment, we're just a stone's throw away from getting 50,000 signatories on that charter, which is very, very nice. So I'm very happy with that. Richard Osmaston is back with us there. Richard, can you dropped out there? Can you just give us a couple of words, please, on yourself?
Absolutely, Colin, Nick. Good morning, guys, everybody. Yeah, we're down here in Nelson, New Zealand, and we just lost the Hangout connection for a minute there. I guess that's a hell of a long wire, connecting us all together. And just demonstrates the amazing technology that we have today, and of course the capability of it. I'm the leader of the Money Free Party in New Zealand, and we've recently contested a general election with 5 candidates around the country, and had a great reception, actually. And I'm also the founder of a think tank called the New Zealand Institute of Resource-Based Economics, where we discuss the money-free concepts in more detail and present them to a wider audience. And it's really through both these movements that I met both Nick and Colin, and also, of course, Ubuntu and the New Earth Nation and a lot of other movements around the world now who are springing up with the realization that we don't actually need to use money or trade or barter anymore. And in fact, we could all be living a fantastic life. And that means everybody, not just a few wealthy individuals, but every single human on the planet could be living a fantastic, totally sustainable life merely by stopping using money? Of course, there's a lot to think about, but that's what we're here for, to discuss it. Over to you, Colin.
Yeah, sure. Okay. There's obviously the name of the hangout was called "What is a Free World?" Maybe, well, I think you've done a pretty good job there already, Richard. But I think maybe give my own particular treatment of that question. What is a free world? Well, we actually live in a world at the moment where we're limited by lots of things. We're limited by money. We're limited by nationality, religion, culture, even sexuality. Lots of different ways that that people are basically prevented from actually living a full. What a free world is to me is something that where we actually optimize our society to actually remove all these limits. Primarily money is the first one is the biggest one to go. I mean, and it really in my personal view, that once we take rid of the money, then a lot of the all the other divisions will just pretty much fall like dominoes as well, because obviously we're all the same species. We're all 99.9999 infinite identical to each other. So I mean, the differences are totally irrelevant. All those differences obviously are imposed on us really and perpetuated by sort of governing bodies or media institutions who they seem to they benefit from actually creating division among people. And obviously when I say benefit, I mean that they actually profit from it, so they get personal advantage from that. I'm very strongly of the view, and maybe slightly controversially, that there are no sort of malevolent forces in the world that are really trying to crush us down and put us down. Most people seem to think like that. I don't think like that at all. I think that most people are basically decent, or basically the same. That everyone wants to have a good life for themselves or for their family or whatever. And really, it's the actual system that we've created ourselves that has actually grown into almost like an unwieldy monster that is really controlling us rather than us controlling it. So I think it's very important. It's quite important, I think, if people start to come to the realization that not to blame people, but to actually blame the structure that's there in society that we created, you know. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm coming from. A free world, I think, is something that, like Richard said, we can do a hell of a lot better than what we're doing now. We can have an amazing life without money and without all the other limits that we impose on ourselves.
Yeah, a free world. Yeah, I mean, a free world it says what it is on the box. It's a free world. It's not something we have to pay for. And I think that says it in a sentence, you know. So, I mean, in a free world, you won't have to pay for it, and everything on the box will be what's inside the box. You know, if something says it's what it is on the box, that's what will be inside the box. That's not what we get within, you know, our so-called free world at the moment. In fact, we get sold loads of crap, and you know, that's one of the things we won't have to put up with in a free world.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, that's question one. I have a load of questions here on the right. Okay, well, this is the probably the most popular one. Let's tackle it straight away. It doesn't give a username. It just says, "How do we get to a free world?" Richard, would like to make a start?
Absolutely. I've a bit like yourself, Colin, I'd like to point out to the viewers that we've hardly met before. We haven't been working together, us guys. We just represent different organizations in different parts of the world, and this is as much us learning about each other as it is learning about the material. And it's amazing that we tend to agree on everything, but that's really exciting. How do we get there? I've been promoting a money-free world for about 5 years. That's basically what I do now. It's become my whole life. And it's probably the biggest question of all. And of course, we've wrestled with this for a long time. How do we actually change things from what we have today? But I think if one looks at historical experience of how change came about, it always happened in a small way first. And bearing in mind that most social changes in the past involved some winners and frequently some losers, so there was a significant resistance to the change in the past. those changes were often bloody and very unpleasant and violent. But with the change to a money-free world, there are no losers. It's basically win-win. Every single person, every animal, everything benefits from this one change, which is quite unprecedented in the history of humanity, actually. And there'll be a few diehards that still think they're going to be better off with the old system. But I think it's becoming increasingly clear with social inequality, poverty, climate change, pollution, etc., that in the current system there are no winners, really. We're all losers. And I mean, the poor have known this forever, but even wealthy people today are starting to realize, because of education, because of increasing communications, because of technology, even wealthy people are realizing that actually they're not that well off because of what's happening to the climate and the rest of the planet. And it's, you know, you can't be wealthy and be alone in this system. It's just, it's no good for you anymore. And it's not long ago that, you know, the problems of the poor were the problems of somebody else. But in fact, we're becoming increasingly aware that they're everybody's problem now. And of course, you know, the system as it is, as the wealth gap increases all the time, makes more and more poor people and fewer wealthy people, and we're causing more and more harm because of that gap, really. So the question was, how does this come about? My answer is, it's already coming about, and the changes that we have to make only take place in our own heads, actually. And I think, as Colin alluded to earlier, there isn't really an evil cabal of scheming monsters at the top. What we've got in our current paradigm is just a feature of a corrosive, competitive money system, where inevitably the most cunning and the most ruthless and those with the least empathy will prevail, and those that are caring and gentle and have empathy will not prevail, you know, because if, in the money system, you just don't get on if you don't take a profit. So I would say that this change is already coming, and all anybody has to do is educate themselves about the free world and about how it would work, and they'll very quickly see the benefits for themselves and for everybody else. Does that make sense, Colin?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. Nick, do you want to add something there?
Yeah, well, I can just sort of concentrate what he said. I mean, yeah, it is $1 million question, you know. I spent a lot of these are going to be $1 million questions, actually, but it is actually happening. I mean, you know, you've got more open source designs, you know, you've got sort of free downloads. When 3D printers, you know, come more online and develop more, then really the possibilities, you know, are quite endless. And then you've got, you know, people with solar panels on their roofs, so they no longer need energy suppliers, you know, they put new batteries. And so we are sort of naturally going towards that free state anyway. I mean, I do think the governments, you know, will try their best, you know, to make licenses and restrict us and invent new taxes. But if we've got the, you know, the political will, the social will to you know, to start making our own demands, you know, then you know, there's no reason why we can't go quite fluidly, you know, into a money-free state. But, you know, I mean, it does need that awareness and education at the moment. You know, the first part of the transition, you know, as Richard said, happens in the head, you know, and it's to be with being exposed to the right information. So that's all we've got to do. You know, you guys out there, you know, you keep giving the people, you know, the right information, you know, turning them on, and that's all which we can do at the moment. We just see how that goes. The situation is always changing. We can't sort of foresee the next few months, let alone the next couple of years. So we can't really see how you know, the full-scale transition will take over, how it can, or even if it can. You know, all which we can do is try, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
Take every situation as it comes and try to make the most out of it.
Yeah, I think obviously the idea of transition, it's the most perfectly reasonable question. You know, when you're proposing something that's so radically different, then obviously the first thing people want to know is how do we get there. So it's absolutely reasonable.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
No problem with that question.
Yeah, can I'll just add a little bit, because as I said, I belong to a political party, actually the same party that Richard belongs to, and you know, one of the first things we got asked, what's your, have you got a transition plan? And we didn't at that point have a transition plan, and we don't have a transition plan, but we have written a transition plan just to show how easy it is. You know, if we've got the will to transition collectively, you know, then we can transition in so many different ways. You know, so that's kind of, I think, why nobody is sort of pushing one sort of transition idea, because it's too early to call, for one thing, and other, you know, people will probably start bickering. Oh no, my transition plan is better than your transition plan. You know, wasting all this time. You know, so at the moment, yeah, we just go forward and expose people to the right information.
Yeah, sure. Why? Yeah, absolutely. One of the problems with the human condition is that when we agree on 99%, we will kill each other to try and try with the extra 1%. It's so absurd. But yeah, I mean, I have when I get asked the transition question, I think the problem really is that if you like, the old world and the new world are almost completely incompatible. So you can't really like gradually go from one to the other, you know, in any sort of sensible way. It can only come, maybe, as Richard said, just through more information and people sort of acting themselves and doing small acts to create wider change. Often my answer to that question is, well, there is no transition plan. And they say, why is there no transition plan? Because you cannot, I mean, to try and like dictate some kind of like prescriptive plan, like say, okay, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, do that. It's a complete nonsense waste of time, because A, it's not going to happen like that anyway. B, you're wasting time and energy doing that when you could actually be just transitioning, and so you could be. You're just causing arguments, you know. When people say, like, let's say, for instance, okay, right, the first thing we're going to step 3, right? Everyone has to paint their house yellow, right? Okay, this is what we have to do. People are going to say, no, well, I don't want to fucking paint my house yellow. You know, why do I have to do that? You know. So I mean, you just create you create a logjam of ideologies, you know, where people say, I don't quite agree with that, and people spend more time arguing than actually doing stuff, you know. I mean, I see this all the time when I'm talking to people on Facebook, you know. People love to argue, you know, over the minutiae, the tiny details, without actually, instead of doing something, you know. So, yeah, I don't know. I've gotten a lot more philosophical in recent years, where I'm kind of I'm not even allowing myself to center on one particular point of view. I'm actually kind of say, well, I can live with accepting more than one point of view. I can have multiple points of views. One of the things with I don't know, with a lot of people in particular, is they can be very dogmatic very quickly and very easily, and say, well, this is the way I think is right, and I'm going to argue with anyone who disagrees with me. So I tend to find it very comfortable sitting on the fence sometimes on some issues, you know. So, as I often say, sometimes it's nice to sit on the fence and just admire the view, you know. So that's where I'm coming from. I think the transition plan, as some sort of prescriptive, is a waste of time. The transition is already happening. We're already in there. The fact that we're talking is part of the transition. The fact that that all of us are working on different projects, and
I'd like to emphasise that as well. I mean, 10 years ago, although, you know, the Venus project was about, and etc., you know, the amount of organisations and awareness that's grown, you know, since, you know, in the last 10 years is amazing, you know. And as Colin said, you know, we're all here. We're talking about it in different groups, and this is part of the transition.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Rafi.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Hi, Rafi. What I'd like to add something to that, Colin, if I may.
Yeah.
If people really want something to actually hang their hat on, because I know we can sound a bit evasive, but I think we've all agreed that the transition has already begun. The fact that somebody asks the question indicates that the transition has already begun, and we're working our way through it now. And it was just the same with the introduction of the plow, or with the Industrial Revolution, or aeroplanes, or space flight. You know, it started as an idea, and then it gradually grew. But when my forecast for the actual transition itself, when we're all ready, and it won't be until we are ready, ready comes first, then action, and there won't be much difference, actually. You won't see a huge, suddenly, you know, spaceships in the sky and huge tower blocks coming up out of the sea. The only difference, really, will be on the Wednesday, we'll do everything like we've always done, and then on the Thursday, we'll do exactly the same thing, except we won't charge for it. Nothing else really changes. Of course, on Thursday, we will no longer have any bills. We won't have to pay any rent. There'll be no taxes or mortgages or rates or anything like that. Everything in the shops will be free, but we'll continue to do exactly the same thing as we did the previous day, because it's probably important to somebody, even if it's not important to us. And gradually, and I think this is the bit that takes a sort of quite a different sort of realization, society will decide what's important for society. And I mean, let's take, for example, nurses will continue to go to work on the Thursday because they know that there are patients there who need their help. Bankers may definitely spend a bit of time in bed that morning thinking about what is the point in what I'm doing. The people who maintain the electricity lines will probably go to work because they know that the people who live in remote communities need their electricity for their survival. And so what I'm saying is the major changes take place in our minds, and when the transition itself, when everybody's ready, and we could really quite easily see us asking the firemen and the road transport people and the electricity generators and the farmers and the hospitals, gradually, who's ready to transition in November 2016? And, you know, if you're not, I don't know, let's say the doctors are not ready, then why not? Do they need help from the universities? Do they need different materials, or do they need more staff, you know? But I think the transition itself will be actually invisible as regards physical entities, but the real change takes place in our minds. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think one of the things, because you're transitioning from like one system which is completely incompatible with another, I think in a lot of ways it might actually, we might fall from one system to the other, if you like. It might be kind of like some sort of crisis, economic crisis happens in a country or something like that, and then suddenly the next day everything's changed. So it'll be a little bit like a natural disaster in some ways, or economic catastrophe could precipitate something like that.
Mm.
So yeah, absolutely. That the transition is what we're doing now, and it's happening organically. It's going to happen organically. I want to bring in Rafi there, who's I'm sorry, Rafi, that we messed up the time zones for you. I'm really sorry, but Rafi is a great guy. He's in a place called Sutton near Quebec in Canada, and thanks a million for joining us, Rafi. I know you're very busy today. Can you give us a few words about yourself, please, and let's have a look at you.
Yeah, sure. The reason why I wasn't here beforehand, because I'm coming from a huge project, a community project, which we just launched today. We have a center where we're gonna offer many services and many activities to the community. Everything is at budgetary contribution. So we had the hairdresser today in the local, and we had a massage lady for offering massages for the kids, and a movie and popcorn and games, social games, and that's it. That's the reason why I just popped in quickly. Our activity will end in an hour, and what I heard, I think Richard saying, is that the changes take place in our minds. I think if you boil down to one phrase, it comes down to that. Everything happens in our minds. And every time we say that's not possible, we're still far from it, and you guys are dreamers. Yeah, we are. And through dreaming, the more we dream, the more we will be in search of our dreams, and the more we will have a chance of taking decisions according to reach our dreams. And that's how the world has always changed. It started with one dreamer and then became two and five and thousand and a million. And that's how we changed the world. That's how humanity evolves. And we're at the dream at the moment is becoming crystal clear. I think no one will say that we're dreamers. I don't think anyone can say that we're dreamers. Anybody who's mildly informed, this is not a dream anymore. This is happening. It's being concrete, and millions of us are doing actions to reach to make the dream a reality, and that's where we're at. So you either join the movement and build the dream, make it a bigger reality, or watch from the sidelines and see us go, and eventually you'll join us. I'm sure you will join us if you don't see it yet.
Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned there contributionism. Most people probably don't know what that means. Can you just tell us what that means?
Contributionism, in the real term of contributionism, there's no money, there's no barter, there's no exchange. Everything is given away. I give, you give, everybody gives, and everybody receives. That's what contributionism is. Since we're still a monetary system, so we are basically in a transitional contributionism system, which means that people give whatever they wish, whatever they can, whatever they want, just to pay the expenses. But there's no price tag. There's sometimes the way I function in my shoe repair shop, I put my minimum and I put the real cost of the item, and customers decide to pay me anywhere between cost and regular price. So that's a form of contributionism, which is in a transitional phase. And the local, we have there all the services, the massage, hairdresser, all the activities we're going to have there. There's no even suggested price. People give whatever they want, and we have a small box, and people just drop the money in there as they wish. And they can even get free services if everything is decided by the person who's receiving the service or participating in the activity. So this to us is a step further of reaching the free world. It's exercising, eliminating the importance of money, and so we don't need money to participate in that local. So that to me is a huge step towards a free world.
Great. Okay. I have a question here from Lisa. Will basic income just trap us in the monetary system, or will it serve as a stepping stone towards a resource not promoted as such? Yeah, we've had that question quite a few times. So will basic income trap us in the monetary system? Nick, do you want to have a go at that one?
Yeah, okay, yeah. It really depends on the detail, doesn't it? Every devil's in the detail. As it is, are we talking about the universal basic income there, the UBI, or? I mean,
anyone who's not familiar with UBI, universal basic income,
so it's a reform being put by sort of capitalist socialists that people should receive an income whether they're working or not. I mean, this income will probably be pretty low, especially considering that here in the UK, even the people that do work at the moment, a lot of them don't even get a living wage, and the government has to top up workers' wages with taxpayers' money, so the employers can pay them less than a living wage. So, it's got nothing to do with a resource-based economy or a free society. It's just to do with being more dependent on the state and less dependent on the capitalist market. But it's still, I don't see that it's going to make any difference really. It's just going to sort of like perpetuate that three-tier system of society, isn't it? The people who haven't got anything, just sort of subsisting, and then the people who are doing not bad, and then the people were doing very, 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 very well, you know, and the UBI is not going to change that at all.
Okay.
That's my scene on it.
Okay. Richard, you got anything to add to that?
Not really. I totally agree with Nick. Yeah, I think it's an absolute waste of time. And I think if you immediately gave everybody £50,000, they would go straight out and buy a new set of mag wheels for their car, and the price of everything would go up £50,000.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The old people still wouldn't have good homes, and we'd still have societal breakdown. They'd probably just buy more drugs. You know, I don't think it makes any difference whatsoever, and it's nothing to do with a resource-based economy.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. Rafi, I think you concur with that as well.
Well, in one phrase, if anybody thinks the UBI will one day transition us to the no money world, I would say that no money will not result to more money does not result to no money. That just simply, it does not make sense. I won't even bother going any further on that.
That's good. I think that's putting it pretty succinctly.
Yeah.
Obviously, I would just say that if you had a UBI system, obviously you're automatically dividing society between money givers and the money takers. So I mean, this will be like an unbelievable social class divide. You know, so it's absolutely ridiculous. It's a horrible idea actually, and I even would nearly go as far as to say that it's maybe cooked up by someone to actually desperately clinging onto the monetary system, but still wants to have their little pound of flesh as well. So I don't know. I think it's a horrible idea. So let's hope it doesn't. Let's try and
oh dear, that's going to upset some people, isn't it? Yeah. Can I just add a little bit to it, just a quick little bit, because I know there's lots of questions coming, but one of the things with capitalist reforms, sort of like UBI, is because they're not alone, are they? It's not just one. It's just not all the reformists trying to get through universal basic income, but other activists are trying to get through sort of other monetary reforms like the positive money campaign or the bring back the greenback, or there's no end of sort of like reforms and sort of things that people are trying to do, playing about with the monetary system, you know, and so they're all divided anyway, you know, all the sort of like the reformist activists, the capitalist reformist activists are sort of so divided in what they do that they just waste hours, literally millions of activist hours go into sort of trying to sort of put sticky plasters on a big cancerous wound, you know. It's just, it's just not happening, is it? So that's my take, yeah.
Great. Okay. Let's move on to another one here, right? But there's quite a few questions, guys, if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is from John Holloman. A money-free society is based on the notion of there being an abundance of resources available to achieve this. Where is the scientific evidence to back up this underlying notion?
Should I start on that one? I don't mind. I did see that question and I thought, well, that's a nice question, because I don't think it does. I think you've got that wrong. Is it John? Yeah, John. I mean, you've got it slightly wrong there. You know, it doesn't. It's not dependent or based on the idea that there's a surplus or an abundance of resources. It's more based on the idea that we can have a well-managed system and we can produce an abundance of necessary things. So that's my take on it. And you know, we can produce an abundance of necessary things once we know what necessary things are, which we already do, don't we? You know, it's good food, it's housing. What do we need, you know, for a good life? We need good people, social relationships, we need good food, easy to provide. Okay, we need some sort of transport that's convenient and, you know, non-polluting. We need some communication set, you know, like a laptop here or a phone or a bigger PC, and housing. You know, it's not like, oh, we've got to do an abundance of gold resources so everybody can wear crowns and call themselves kings. It's not really based on that, you know, but it's based on we are able, you know, to create an abundance of the things that we need to thrive on the planet.
Okay. Richard, do you want to try something with that?
Yes. Yeah, to specifically answer John's question there, in New Zealand, the average individual person in agriculture, I'm not talking about a partnership or a company, the average individual is responsible for about 1,000 animals. Okay, so that's how much abundance there is in agriculture. Sure. And in vegetable production, you know, if you wanted to, and I mean, it's all around us where we live here, if you wanted to plant, let's say, 10 million broccoli plants next year, as opposed to the 5 million you planted this year, all you'd really have to do is drive your GPS-controlled air-conditioned tractor twice as far up the field before you turned it around. You know, that's the sort of abundance we're talking about. It's so easy to produce the things that we need. I have no idea, I don't have any scientific evidence as to how much oil there is or to how much platinum there is, but in a resource-based economy, when we're all on the same side, it's no longer a competition to get to those resources, and it's in all our interests to use the resources wisely. And if we have some drawback from using, say, oil, then as a society, we can collectively come up with a better way of getting energy than by burning oil. So, is there, and I guess the scientific proof that there is an abundance of resources is evidenced in how much waste we see. Mm-hmm. In the existing paradigm, how much waste is there? There's your abundance. And I think that probably answers the question. Over to you. Do you want to say something, Rafi?
Yeah, I think the way I see the question behind the question is, what if there is some resources that we do have scarcity? I'm not a specialist in this. Let's say there is. So what? What's the problem there exactly? Will we have not enough of whatever? Let's say fruit and vegetables will have enough of everything for everybody on the planet. If we're talking about precious metal, that kind of stuff, so what? Who cares? Do we need really that much in a free world? Because don't forget, in a free world, we'll be sharing. We won't all need a tool or whatever it needs to be that we need to function. So we'll be sharing our resources. So how much of it do we need exactly when we start sharing it? So it's like, again, it's the same exact problem over and over, conversation after conversation. We transpose the present paradigm in the new paradigm. Please, people, I beg of you, stop doing that. Just go outside the box and think about how everything will be. Relationships, functionality, governance, everything will change. Everything will change. Nothing will stay the same. From individual inside me and to the worldwide community. So if you just start imagining, use your imagination. Find the kid in you that used to imagine all sort of things when they were so innocent. Find that in you. We all have it. We all have that in us. So find it and imagine a new paradigm of no money involved. So resources, scarcity or not, it's not an issue for me. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, it's about management of resources.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think as Richard said, and I was going to say something similar myself, that the consumerist paradigm that we have and the way that we completely exhaust the resources available to us just give an indication of how much are available. But of course, in a resource-based society, and also in a more compassionate society that we're talking about here, that people's attitude to consumerism won't be the same at all. Like I say, we will be the people will understand the difference between the importance and the necessity of sharing and of compassion and of being frugal with resources if they're in short supply, and sharing what they have if it's in abundance. So it's not really so much about the resources. It's about the complete shift in attitude with which that is required. I mean, we have to do it anyway. You know, even if you're going to continue with the monetary society ad infinitum, well, we can't possibly continue this way anyway. I think even most hardened scientists will agree with that. And part of the reason is the way that we exhaust the resources now very, very wastefully, in like really creating piles of crap to sell in America at Christmas is how much stuff is wasted there to completely, rewrite the script and come up with it, change our ideas where we're more we're helping each other more. We're not competing. And we're sharing stuff more. So absolutely, there's bundles of resources. I don't think any of us here have scientific evidence really, but I think the fact that the consumer society is really is the ultimate proof of how much there is, and so I don't think it's going to be a problem. And once we apply technology without profit or competition, then things are going to improve a lot more. Okay, shall I move along? And there's another one here. Rafi, you posted this. Maybe someone sold it to you. How will the free world deal with lazy people? Do you want to do that one, Rafi, or?
Yeah, again the same. I think I'm going to repeat my same phrase. Let's shift paradigms and let's imagine the free world, how it's going to be. Laziness will no longer exist. It will have no reason to exist. And even if we did have lazy people, it won't be called laziness anymore. Maybe it's somebody who likes chilling. Maybe it's somebody who won't. It's like, let's say a school class. There's 30 students. Each student works in its own rhythm, in its own speed, and it's no different for adults. Some adults like to really go 100 miles an hour. Some like to go easy. But in this society, going easy, it's called laziness. It's called not being productive enough. So again, in the free world, if we imagine how it's going to be, we won't have to do 10-hour shifts to make a living. We could work 10 hours a week, and it'll be more than enough to create abundance for all. So where does laziness come along? So if the lazy person does 5 hours a week, who cares? So what? I would like to do 20 hours a week. So it's going to balance out. And the person who's lazy at the moment, it's just because I congratulate them to be lazy. I congratulate them not to put a suit and tie and work 40, 50 hours a week. Thank you for showing how messed up the system is. So it's a result of the direct result of the system we have now. So this person is not lazy. This person maybe is conscious of the reality. Let's look at it that way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah.
I'm not trying to encourage laziness. I'm just pointing out a different way of seeing it. That's all.
Sure. Yeah, Richard, I think you dropped out for the question there. Just said the question was just how does the free world deal with lazy people? Yes. From my own point of view, as one of the problems with the society that we live in now, among other things, is that we are absolutely helping. Like we measure bank accounts, we measure the property, we measure our college degrees, our success in our jobs and that sort of stuff. Everything is measured. So this is purely the product of a competitive society, whereas someone is going to get ahead of you and then you're left behind or whatever. It's something we've got to get over. I think in some ways I would blame sort of middle-aged science, where we had this whole Newtonian paradigm which came in, which was kind of trying to separate everything and box everything. Now this is filtered through to society in general, where everything is enumerated, everything is quantified, and for me, life doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that, and you can't measure one person against another person. It's unreasonable. Like an example I would give, like maybe you have a guy that you would call lazy who like lies around on the couch for 10 years watching TV on repeat, and most people would think he's lazy, but maybe after 10 years you're going to jump off that couch with a cure for cancer or something like that, because of that's the way he had to arrive at a thing. So now he's made a fantastic contribution for doing absolutely nothing. And then also you have people who work constantly, and maybe they're in the way, maybe they're a hindrance, and so maybe they just so this idea of measuring people, I don't know. It's not useful. It's useful in a monetary society because we have a way of it.
It's very detrimental, And sorry. It is very detrimental, and they do it at schools, you know, and they basically screw up young people's self-image of themselves, you know, because we continually measure by output, you know, or we try to objectify reality, and that is, you know, one of the defining points about our culture, and really why, you know, we allow our society and our environment to suffer so much. You know, it's because we've objectified it so much from an early age. We've been trained our mind to look at everything, objectify and quantify, that we don't feel connected with it at all, you know, because reality is subjective. All the the experience of reality is subjective, and, you know, to sort of, you know, put sort of numbers on it and quantify it is, you know, it's just separating us from reality. It's a terrible thing. I don't really understand, but yeah, okay. Say if there is a sort of thing as a lazy person, somebody who doesn't want to work, fine. Why do they have to work? You know, why do I have to work? Just because I feel like I want to work, I want to work. If people don't want to work, then they don't want to work. You know, but I think you'll find, you know, 90% of humans, at least, you know, they do want to contribute. You know.
Absolutely, Richard. You want to say something there?
Yeah, absolutely. I could really quantify that, Nick. I mean, in all the research I did before the election, you know, we would talk to people about, you know, what would your life be like if everything were free, if you were effectively a wealthy retired person, which is how we're going to be. And everybody, and I mean everybody, right throughout the whole strata of society, wants to do something of value. And I mean, to back up what Rafi said, even if they don't want to do anything, it doesn't matter. We don't need them anymore. That's why we've got so many unemployed people. That's why we've got so many people doing pointless jobs that serve no purpose whatsoever, because there isn't really anything important left to do. And if you set people free, then they can choose for themselves what's important. And then we come around right in a full circle to what is important to society. Because now that we're free to accomplish it, society will build the society that society wants, if that makes sense. Unrestricted by, inverted commas, affordability. We've now got all these humans, all these resources, all this technology. What kind of society do you want to build? And if it's a couch surfing, sleeping society, then that's what society wants, you know. But I don't think that is. And I mean, if you ask yourself, or if you look at your own family or the people that you know, if they had money, what would they actually do? I mean, it's easy, really, isn't it? What's the next question, Colin?
Well, if I can add one more thing, Colin, I think almost all questions that come up in people's minds and in my conversations are to avoid making the jump of paradigm. People freak out of the free world because it's totally unknown. Humanity probably has never experimented in the global level. So the questions I'm getting, I mean, it's okay. I mean, I'm ready to answer them, but it is really to avoid. We're trying to find, we're trying to poke holes in the idea of the free world. So, having said that, to the next question.
Yeah, sure. Okay, but maybe this one is directed more at Richard and Nick from the Money Free Party.
Yeah, I can see that.
Steve just asked, how do you expect to win or to get anywhere in a corrupt, rigged political system? Should we be starting a new system that's not already corrupt? So in terms of, you guys are trying to enter the political arena. So Steve is I suppose he's essentially asking there, how it's obviously rigged. Is there any point in what you're doing?
Well,
absolutely.
Go on, Richard.
Go ahead. It's easy, that one, Steve. We're not trying to win any election, mate. I have no faith in the political process as it is whatsoever. All it is basically getting a platform from which to present money-free concepts. That's all. I mean, in short, it's free publicity, and it gets us to put money-free content amongst political content. So we start presenting ourselves at that level. Would you agree with that, Nick?
Yeah. I mean, I'd go a few steps further, because I suppose what makes we're really focused on mainstream society, and a lot of people, within the free world movement, they kind of want to move away from mainstream society, which is fine, but as long as mainstream society remains mainstream, then we're going to be subjected to it, and that doesn't matter, if we go off into the woods and live as primitives or whatever, we're still going to be subjected by mainstream society and what it does. So but the idea of the money-free party was to use a political vehicle to promote a money-free society, and basically that is what we do. So we tend to reach parts that say like TZM, the Zeitgeist movement and the Venus Project don't necessarily reach, because the people that go to find the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement, etc., or Ubuntu, they're people that are looking for an alternative. Okay, so they're alternative people, they're looking for alternative answers, where mainstream society are not so much looking. They're just going to read what comes in through their letterbox or what's on their TV. So if we can sort of like enter into their letterboxes, which is what a lot of political material does, you're sort of entering into their households, and you're getting people that are not normally thinking about alternative worlds to start thinking about the current paradigm and alternative paradigms.
Okay, great. If you don't mind, because I want to move on. There's quite a few questions there. Let's, if you don't mind, maybe we can try and keep our answers a little bit briefer. There's quite a few in here, which is great to see. Just one second. Where is it going? Sorry, someone just had.
I've got one here. It says, if in every next vote cycle around the world a high percentage of people wrote RBE next to every option, what might happen next?
Yeah.
Well, that's quite easy. They would just say as a mess ballot, and nothing would happen at all. But it's a spoiled ballot paper. Unless you put a cross in the box, in the right box, it's a spoiled ballot paper. So best thing is to vote for an RBE party, and if there's not an RBE party in your area, then make one.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely.
Next question.
I had a lovely question there, and now I lost it. Sorry, after scrolling down here. And basically the question, I can't remember now who it was, but the question was essentially, is there a country in the world where this is already happening, and what is that country, or is there a place or society that you know of? Rafi, do you know?
Ireland? No? No, there isn't, sorry. Not that I know of.
Machu Picchu. Is it Machu Picchu?
I don't know.
I think there is, but you have to look hard for it, and in fact it's everywhere, but you don't see it because it's just dominated by the money system, and it happens in your family, it happens in your community. There's volunteerism, there's contributionism, it happens in nature. Nature has never known any other system. It's everywhere, but you have to take off the blinkers to see it. And we've just been brainwashed to think that money and getting things by ownership and trade and barter is normal. And in fact, the resource-based economy is what's normal. That's what's existed for basically all of eternity until this money thing appeared very, very recently. So I would say that it's actually everywhere. Over to you.
Absolutely, I would absolutely echo what you just said there, Richard, because everything about our exchange, our trade system is all completely conditioned. It's all something that we just learned from our environment. There's no evidence that it's actually the way it has to be. It doesn't exist anywhere else in nature. I think it's very important for people to see that really what the whole society that we have is actually a layer that's on top of actually something where people just generally. I mean, we are a social species, you know, like all other primates, we're a social species, so which means, what does that mean? It means that we work in groups, we operate in groups, we work best in groups. And obviously we can't work in groups unless we're actually helping each other or we're doing stuff. That's, so I mean, it's by definition, and probably a part of many of the malaises in society in terms of crime or aberrant behavior really probably comes from this underlying contradiction of our nature. That's where we are actually naturally social, and we're being sort of enforced predators against each other, and I think this is creating wrong behaviour. So this is why all our prisons are full, I suppose, part of the reason. Okay, we'll move on. John Holloman, again, for the first country to go money free, how do you see them trading with other countries that still use the monetary system? In particular for petroleum, electronics, medicines and holidays by its citizens to other countries. So if there was a country to go money free, how would they trade with outside world? Maybe I'll tackle that one myself quickly, if you don't mind. One of the side project that we have with the Free World Charter is that we're trying to propose Iceland as being a potential first candidate country to go money free. There's various good reasons for that. Obviously, Iceland has its pretty much its own energy needs are covered. They don't tap it, but it is there, and they have a low population. One thing is that we actually have earmarked it as being a potential place to start. Personally, I would like to see it starting on a national scale where you have a reasonable sized population and already an established infrastructure and an established national brand, I suppose, which is kind of the glue that would keep people together. I think it's possible. I think in terms of transitioning the world from using money to no money, it probably will come down to one country that starts it, and other countries follow on from the would trade with the outside world. I suppose inevitably they probably would have to make some concessions in order to do that. Well, maybe they could barter things or service and skills. I don't know. So it's important that such a country would be very, very self-sufficient to begin with. Yeah, maybe even a larger country, even Australia or New Zealand or something like that, who they would probably be more self-sufficient in terms of actually indigenous resources. But I think, it obviously has to start somewhere. I think there would have to be some concessions. Yeah, they probably would have to trade or do something like that, or maybe that other countries who were sort of would choose to donate or something like that to try and support their efforts or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit hopelessly naive, but anyway, there you go. It's maybe Nick, would you like to have a go at that?
I can say I don't know. Foreign holidays, I've never really thought about that. I have to think about that. I really don't can't answer that question. But I think with the UK, say I'll take the UK for example. Okay, we have really nearly all the resources we need here already. You know, we've got all the steel, we have the capacity to create sort of renewable energy, we have the capacity to grow as much food as we need. We've got nearly all the resources that we need. And if we do need to import stuff, then what we could do is create a surplus of something that we don't need and export it and receive and have gold as the currency. You know, then obviously, you know, that you can sell that anywhere. But it's you know, it's that thing about one country going before any other country. If it was a small country, then yeah, you know, you get like a small country like Iceland, and then it might be quite a while before other countries joined. But if it was a country, say like the UK, you know, then that wouldn't happen by itself. You know, it would be, if the UK went today, it would mean the rest of Europe is going tomorrow, and the United States. And as they go, you know, the whole, you know, Australia, New Zealand, you know, the half of Asia that's got freedom, they will want it. You know, it's not going to be sort of like, oh, we're going to if you look at it, it's a short time span. Maybe this year these countries and next year those countries. We can all do without a foreign holiday for a year, can't we? That's my take on it.
I'd like to add, I don't know either exactly. I can only guess, but I can also logically think that by the day that the full country becomes fully money free, many other countries will be way more advanced than they are at the moment in the free movement. And so it's not going to be this issue. It's not like the other countries are way behind and one country is fully in the money system. It doesn't work that way, because one aspect is that humanity is interconnected. So if they are evolved enough spiritually and technologically and psychologically to actually form a whole country in the free system, oh man, we would be so far ahead any country in the States, Canada, Europe, Australia, Africa, and it's going to be way easier to make the transition once the country goes in. So it's not the present situation we're dealing with. So if that ever happens, next step would be peanuts. It would be very easy to accomplish one country after the other.
Okay. I'll go on to the next question. This is from Luciano. I can totally see a free world society happening and actually working, and that's a reality that makes much more sense than the actual one. My question is, what are the strategies to hands the fellas that currently ruin the world? Okay, Richard, off to you. Off you go. How are we going to
well, unfortunately, those people only rule the world.
How are we going to wrest power from
their staff?
Lizard men?
Yeah, they're only rulers because they have staff, you know. And if the people are voluntary, then unless they like what their boss is suggesting they do, they just won't do it. So if their boss is a philanthropic, empathetic person who wants to provide food for hungry people, or he wants to build better shelter for old people, then I think he'll get lots of volunteers to help him. If he wants to sell alcohol to teenagers, or tobacco, or, you know, plastic toys, then people won't help him do it. You know, those support structures are only there because of the money system itself. You know, like Rafi touched on earlier, you've got to think, when you think about money free, you've got to think about all the topics at the same time. And those power structures that they have are entirely driven by a baseline of poverty and marketing it right the way up to the richest person in the world. And when you know, everything we need is provided by the people, and the line of discontentment in society, as we become more aware of pollution and climate threat and social instability and things, that line of discontentment is moving up and up through society. And I mean, those people you're talking about, they're so few and they're so displaced from what the majority of the population are thinking, I don't think it'll even matter, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, Rafi, how are we going to get the power of the big guys?
I resume the whole thing in 3 steps. One is realizing that money has to go, and we have to create a money-free world. That's the number one clear-cut realization. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is get involved in building the free world. Step number 3 is where the question comes in, is to be ready to deal with the rulers. Let's call it the rulers. What does that mean, being ready to deal with the rulers? That means is that once I realized that money has got to go, and I started building the free world, when there's an obstacle, let's say I have a knock on the door from the ruler, one of the rulers, and at that point, what do? Do I back off and go back and stop all action and go back to the old world? To me personally, I can only talk for myself. That is not an option anymore. I'm ready to go all the way. I mean, whatever that means to you, I'm ready to go all the way in it. I'm in it all the way. There's no turning back for me, because turning back for me equates to dying, to surviving, to living a life with no taste, with no feelings, with no desires, becoming a robot that I've been almost all my life. That is not an option. I'm sorry. If that's an option for you, you might probably use it at that point once step 3 comes in. So I can only talk for myself. So how to deal with them, it's up to you. It all depends how much you believe in the money free world, and how how you see the money in itself. All depends on that.
That's it. I mean, it's just, it's us giving them consent, because without our consent, they don't have any power. They don't rule the world if we don't give them consent.
That's right.
The most they can do is send out their workers, as policemen or army, and and half of them are just people anyway. A lot of our brothers and sisters, they're not going to shoot their own brothers and sisters.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no sort of strategy there, because it's just consent, isn't it? That's where they get their power from. So
that's
stop giving it their consent.
Absolutely, because people they like to talk about the rulers and the elite and the government and all that kind of thing, but really those people are only there because we allow them to be there, because we consent to that, and we do what they tell us, But so I mean, it's us. It's the problem, not them. That is the truth.
That's right.
The rulers are not the problem. We are the problem, because we accept their rule, we accept their dominion, and we don't question. So that's the problem. So if, in my personal opinion, is just completely ignore the elite, ignore these guys. Just don't give them any credit whatsoever. And just focus on trying to create something better ourselves.
Yeah, okay, I think that's best strategy.
Another question from Jared. Hey, CT, Rafi, Richard, and Nick. Here's my question. Do we need to agree on something or lead by example? What are the main contingencies holding back individuals from living free? Is it fear, lack of solutions, fear of change, consciousness level, etc.? Okay, it's a good question. What's the biggest thing holding people back from jumping on board with this kind of thinking? Richard, do you want to go with that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the thing I come up most often against is brainwashing, really. Our expectation that what went before must continue in the future, and that seems to be the most difficult thing. It's a psychological problem. It's nothing to do with technology or anything pragmatic. It's just in our minds we think we have to be subservient. I don't know. What do you think?
Rafi, you got something on that? I'm sure you do.
Well, it's obviously everything comes from fears. The fear doesn't really say much. It's a fear of lack, a fear of exclusion, fear of elimination. Everything is fear-based. So that's another thing. Why I am not willing to back off, and no matter what happens, no matter who I face or what obstacles I face, because once I back off, that means I'm going back in my fear, in my daily life. I'm living the fear. So I'm in the process of healing the fears. I'm tired of living a life-based fear-based life day in, day out. So that's it. Obviously, it's fear. I mean, that's an easy question to answer. It's fear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would add to that just conditioning. That we have been conditioned to respond in a certain way. So it's getting people to think differently. Yeah. That's
well, I'd like to add one more precision, not because people are when we talk about fear. I'm not talking about fear of let's say fear of jumping off a bridge and dying. Obviously, that's not fear. That's concrete. That's obvious. I don't even call that fear. That's just being loving myself. I don't want to kill myself. The fear that I'm talking about is the fear that has been programmed in us. That it's artificial fear. Fear of each other, from each other. Fear of doing my passions. Those are the types of fear that I'm talking about.
Yeah, can I go inside? Because a lot of what holds everybody back is lack of trust. Lack of trust in each other. We went out and we did interviews with people, and we asked them a bit of a trick question. We said, would you work for free in a free society? Now everybody really said yes, they would, and this was where the but come in. But I don't think other people would. So there's this whole sort of fear with people that they don't trust other people. So I think that is is one of those contingencies that is holding people back. Is the lack of trust that we have for each other. Apart from that, which is obviously fear as well. That's what lack of trust is. Yeah, that's kind of one of our main things. And of course, we're not separated individuals. We are sort of, we're all connected. And as long as, there's people or given the illusion that the paradigm that we're in is the safe paradigm and everything's going well, then nobody's going to step out of that paradigm.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, here's a good one from Rob James. How long do you expect the current financial system to last? Rafi, you got one on that?
As long as we make it last. Okay. I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
That's a great answer. Yeah. Okay, Richard, what do you think? How long do you expect the current financial system to last?
I think Rafi's absolutely right. It'll go on indefinitely as long as we let them do it. They'll just keep adding zeros and printing more money that we never can quite get. So it's up to you, Rob. We're ready to end it now, mate.
That's it. Yeah, of course. Yeah, because it relies on imaginary number scale. It can just go on and on forever. So yeah, they could just keep on doing it and keep changing the rules and keep that. So yeah, it'll go on. It's a circus.
Yeah, I would say that's
indefinite.
Yeah, that's the likely future. They'll make a few reforms here and there, but as long as we give it consent, then it's going to keep carrying on.
I think actually 2008, I think maybe a lot of cats were out of the bag there. Really, a lot of people were maybe caught with their pants down, to use another expression, where they kind of it took them by surprise, and obviously the banks looked terrible and that sort of thing. I think you probably won't see the like of that again, because they'll just be better at engineering it so it doesn't happen that way, or covering it up to prevent that kind of public humiliation.
It is difficult.
Probably find that it'll be smoothed over a lot better. We won't see that sort of explosive headlines again.
Yeah, I just like put in something that nobody's put in about this question, because he's talking about the current financial system now. The money-free world is not the only, or the money-free community is not the only sort of community that wants to have changes in the economic system. Those of you know about Agenda 21 and the United Nations, the United Nations wage slaves, putting in loads and loads of effort into trying to make Agenda 21 to happen. And this, for those of you who don't know what Agenda 21 is, or think it's some sort of conspiracy thing, Agenda 21 is a very real thing. It was signed by all world leaders in Rio in the 1990s, and can be explained in one simple sentence: local sustainable economies. Which sounds very nice, but the devil is always in the detail. So we do have the UN sort of like wanting to manifest these local sustainable economies, and for them to manifest it, we are going to need a huge change in our banking system, the way we produce money, the way we manage money, and the way we manage ourselves on a social level. So, of course, the answer to your question is I don't know, but who knows? Things can happen, change very quickly. We often talk of conspiracies, and I'm the first person who will try to avoid conspiracy theories. But I will say people do conspire, and as far as we know, the crash in 2008 might have been part of a larger conspiracy for us to think we've got to change the way we manage money. Who knows? Another cat in the bag for the conspiracy theorists.
Okay, great. Here's another one from Chris Burke. I know Chris actually. So if the spread of the information is the key to transition, and they control the information, they, inverted commas, control information obstacle. If they're trying to make it harder for people to control the internet and the media, so presumably he's saying how are we going to break through this sort of the media strangulation of information or whatever? Maybe who mightn't see any benefit in spreading these kind of ideas. How do we get over that obstacle? Richard, you got an idea?
Yes, I would say that everybody has their own sort of mental logjam in their heads that stops them being a money-free entity already. You know, nature is money-free. We were born money-free, and then somehow we took on this paradigm of the money system. And it's, you know, unfortunately we were there first, really. I mean, there's been a few others before us, but now it's getting bigger. It's up to us to find why each person you're communicating with has that logjam, because everyone has their own customized one. You know, again, we're talking about brainwashing, and in the end of the day, the big media is not customized to individuals, and everybody has a way of, there's a way to get through to everybody regarding resource-based economics, but it's not always straightforward. Sometimes you can make a zeitgeist movie and it gets through to millions of people, but there's plenty of people it won't get through to, and you may have to do that one-to-one, or with leaflets, or with elections, or having a store, or having a website, or having a Google Hangout. You know, it's just a case of gradually picking our way through humanity and, you know, freeing those log jams. So, but it's a good question, because there's, you know, there's a lot of forces, not intentionally, I think, but there's a lot of forces against us. I agree.
Yeah. If I just ask you, Richard, if obviously from your own experience of the election campaign, obviously you would have dealt with media quite extensively, or well, hopefully you did. How did you find? How did the media treat? How did they treat you and those ideas that you were saying? How does it find you?
Well, at the end of the day, we didn't get as much airtime or as much newspaper time as the bigger parties, you know, who of course are, you know, being lobbied by the media industry. But even the people who did come and interview us, and the people that we wrote to, and the TV crews and things, they're human beings too at the end of the day, and it's not really working for them. You know, they're still touchy-feely real creatures underneath that glaze of you know, of the big bad media, and life isn't really working that well for them either. You know, there's nobody in the system that this really works for anymore. You know, so yeah, we came up against it, and we certainly didn't get the publicity that the bigger parties got. But people are interested. You know, human beings are interested in this. You know, you have to remember that.
Yeah, sure. Nick.
Yeah, it's a problem, Chris. I mean, you know, a couple of years ago, you know, Facebook, they started to, you know, when they started to monetize, you know, their system, you know, the pages that we had, you know, their reach went down incredibly, you know. So, yeah, they do exert control, but as Richard's pointing out, you know, there's always a way to circumvent them, and yeah, it's a shame that, you know, you know, the media is not so open and accessible, you know, and egalitarian, but that's just the way it is. You know, there's ways to get around that. You know, at the moment, you know, I'm sort of developing a single page newsletter that's going out to my community, you know, like every month, you know. So yeah, if the media is not there, or you don't think the media is reaching the people that you want to reach, then, you know, we have to, you know, do it ourselves. And I think that's what, as a movement, you know, we'll carry on doing.
Sure, Rafi, I know you we actually would like to talk about your community centre, but maybe we'll do that in a minute. But obviously, are you getting some help from the media with sort of promoting new ideas and promoting new ways of doing business and new ways of thinking? Are the media helping you with that, or are they hindering you, or how is it?
The local media is very cooperative, and they are very enthusiastic. And every time we call them, and they always show up. But I'd like to answer the question this way: that information is key for transition. Am I correct? Is that what he was saying? Yeah, he was saying that information is key for transition. I don't think it is. I don't think information is key for transition. Key for me is self-improvement. It's about inner healing. It's about getting in touch with our nature. I mean, I don't need information to know that money has to go. I just have to live my life and be aware of what's happening inside me. All the all the fear that I'm surrounding myself every time I go to work. I don't need information for that. I don't even need internet for that. I can be self-aware of that, and I don't need information to realize that I am disconnected from one another. I am in competition with my community, with my brothers and sisters around me. I don't need information for that. I'm sorry, I don't need information. So what I need is just to wake up. Just wake up and ask my neighbor, can I do something for you today? Or go to the supermarket and open the door for people. Help elderly and pregnant people and sick people, handicapped people with their groceries to get them to the car for free. That's what I need to do. I mean, take away internet, take away newspapers, take away everything. I don't need any of that. And on top of that, what I would also add is that the reason people, me included, that I've found myself doing in search of information is to avoid doing all the rest, because we have more than enough information to start building the free world. More than enough. We don't need any type of media, not alternative, not mainstream. So that's it. That's what I have to do, and it continuously in search of information is because we know that we have to do some. We have to take part of the responsibility and do community services and do projects to build a free world. And that's way too big, too much effort, takes too much responsibility. So we want more information. We're delaying our responsibility basically by doing that.
I think absolutely that yeah, it's an awakening of self has to happen, but the information is actually really important, I think, because it's very important for us to identify with other people who are thinking the same way as we are. A lot of the things that I find with people who signed the Free World Charter, for instance, is I've seen comments from people in far-flung places who are saying, "Oh, I can't believe I found someone who thinks the same way I did, and I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was, I thought I was nuts. My family think I'm nuts." I hear these kind of comments, and if you imagine that. What a difference it's made to those people to actually have identified with someone who's thinking along the same lines, and that's why I think that it's very important that people have.
That kind of takes us back to another question that somebody asked about, what's holding people back, from entering a free world, and that is really one of those relative things. It's because we think we're such a small minority. We don't want to, we're scared of sort of saying what we think, and we're sort of scared of promoting a money-free society because people are going to laugh at us. But of course, the more people that join in, the more people that start promoting a money-free world, then the less, we get laughed at, and the less people are frightened of standing up. So it's, it's very relative, finding, more people, we get a stronger voice, and it is, we've got to get the information out there,
Okay, let's move on a bit. John Holloman again says, why won't people hoard and fight over resources in a money-free society? What is the structure framework that will govern the use of resources? Particularly for the first countries where there may not be an abundance of resources, etc. Okay, well, there's a couple of questions there, but really the main one is, and what's to stop people from hoarding or fighting over resources in a money-free society? Rafi, do you want to have a go at that one?
I thought we had answered that question in a different format. That lack of resources in a free world. First of all, I don't see it happening, and if we do have it, why would we fight over it? Sure, we could mention reasons why we would fight over it within this paradigm. But if there's one banana left and we're 3 family members, do we fight over it?
Yeah. Good answer.
But
absolutely, and it comes down to the old problem of people trying to map the old paradigm onto the new paradigm. Where people are trying to understand the new idea in an old way of thinking. So yeah, it's not about like, okay, there's one I don't know, like beat each other to get this apple. It's not going to be like that at all, because it's not just about that. It's about having an understanding, a completely different approach to society, to community, and to nature. It's all about completely different. It's not about a new economy, and that's why I'm not really a fan of using the term resource-based economy, because I don't consider it an economy in the same way as such. I see that economy is a very basic term. We all know what economy is.
Yeah.
We have quite a good meme on the Facebook page where it's economics, and really I'm just thinking, well, if you imagine children, you imagine apples, and that's economics. That's all it is. You know, how are you going to divide the apples with the children? That's all it is. It's simple maths division. Anything else that is not, that's kind of like the economists have all these horribly convoluted theories and economics, which is all complete crap. It's all toilet paper as far as I'm concerned. It's actually, it has nothing to do with reality. It has nothing to do with how people can help each other, or how people really are. So I think it's the whole approach to resources is not going to be a problem. It's once people are aware that they call it self-responsible, self-determined, and respect for the community, respect for nature, the whole thinking changes. So it's not really going to be an issue at all. Okay, will I move on? Okay, you've got a good one here from Matthew Sands. Myself and Rafi have been having a shooting match with Matthew Sands over and back.
Hey Matthew, great to see you here.
Okay, so how do we obtain the freedom from state violence so that we can be free to choose the Free World Charter or Free World? Money is a tool of control, but how can we remove it when we are not free to make that choice? I'm not sure how to approach that question.
Okay, I'll start. Richard. All right. Okay. Money is well, we can't, can we, Matthew? You know, I mean, yeah, we can't stop state violence. You know, the only people that can stop state violence are the people that dish it out, which are not the elite. You know, they're the elite bully boys, or a lot of them are not bully boys. A lot of them are people who have joined the army or police force with very good intentions. You know, that have good hearts and they do it for a living. You know, I think it's going back to that same question: is, you know, how do we get to a money-free society? Well, we start wanting it, and when we want it, it'll be we, not just a few people, but, you know, members of the armed services and the police as well. So that's the way I would look at it.
Yep.
Richard?
Yep, they're human beings too. Exactly. Next question.
Yep, absolutely agreed. Let's move on.
Well, if I like just to clarify what Matt is coming from, we spoke about an hour and a half, and we finally ended up understanding each other. What he's saying is that it's a chicken or the egg kind of type of questioning, which comes first, and we ended up saying that we both have to be done at the same time, building the money-free world and dealing with the elite at the same time. So it's not one before the other. Both have to be. That's why political people are here, Richard and Nick, and that's infiltrating the political arena and getting the virus in there, so to speak. And also guys like me who are the foot soldiers who are doing the community projects day in, day out. So it's not one or the other. It's both at the same time. Everything has to be, how you call it, full blast. All the cannons should be blasting from all over the place.
Yeah, that's right. The more support, you know, the ideal gets, then the less support the current paradigm gets. You know, so it's like what Rafi's saying. You know, it's a chicken and the egg. You know, the more support, you know, we get as a movement, the less support, you know, the elite gets. So, and you know, the monetary system gets. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that we create as the movement progresses. we just make the power structures of the government, they just become more and more obsolete and more irrelevant. So I certainly don't see it as a situation that we have to overcome the government or overthrow the elite. I certainly don't see that at all. I think it's just a natural process where you just slowly take away their power, and we're doing something else that's just infinitely more interesting and more exciting than what these guys are doing in their grey suits every day. So I think it's just a case of just ignore the elite and just do something else. It's the worst thing you can do politically is ignore someone. You know, this kills them. You know, makes their heads explode. Okay, let's move on. Chris Burke said, "Beautifully said, Rafi," for something you said earlier, so that's nice.
Thank you.
Dean Sigurdsson, who we all know, I think, says, "I don't think I have a question, but just saying hi." Hi, Dean.
Hi, Dean.
Hi, Dean.
The answer is I don't know.
Very good. Okay, somebody asked, what's an RBE? Richard?
Yeah, a resource-based economy. We're still struggling with the name, a resource-based society, a money-free society. It doesn't really matter, you know, whatever suits you and your local environment. We're talking about a society where everything is free and everything is voluntary. If you don't want to work, you don't have to. If you wish to contribute, that's great, but everybody gets the same regardless of whether they contribute or not. We have the technology to support it now. There's plenty of people who do want to contribute, and you know, this is not the 19th century, this is the 21st century, and everybody on the planet could live a fantastic, sustainable and healthy life. That's an RBE.
Wow, okay, I don't think we can beat that. That's very well said. You'll make a great politician someday. Yeah, Richard for president. Yeah. Okay, Peter asks, a free world means new organizational structures. Are they being built? I'm aware of the Venus Project, but I don't think software created by humans can organize everything. Guideline, but it might be good as a guideline, but not as a rule. So he's saying that I'm aware of the Venus Project. Anyone who's not familiar with the Venus Project, it's you can Google it. The Venus Project. These are the guys who one of the guys who are advocating resource-based economy, and they've built all kind of incredible designs, and they have a very good program going on actually around the world actually. So they're a very impressive organization. They have some great visualizations of the sort of how we can improve our cities and how we can enhance society with technology. But so Peter's saying, I'm aware of the Venus Project, but I don't think software created by humans can organize everything because nature is unpredictable. I don't think the Venus Project is advocating software solely. Maybe Nick, you want to have a go at that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Well, you are right, Colin. You know, I think a lot of people get the wrong impression sometimes of the Venus Project because they don't sort of go into it enough. You know, they're cities, aren't they? You know, the Venus Project is a project for a self-sustaining city, and you know, it's got a management system that depends on software, but it also depends on people. And that's the other half of it. You know, the people create the software to suit the system and to suit the environment. And if the environment changes, which it does, because nature is very unpredictable, as you said, Colin, then you know the software can change as well. But ultimately, you know, it's about people. And you know that's how it's going to be organised. It's going to be organised sort of like more on a community level. You know, I mean, if you look at now, you know, where you have like centralised control and then local coordination, it's going to be the opposite. You're going to have local control and central coordination. It'd just be the opposite to where we are now. So it's,
Yeah, I know
is the communities are going to be in control.
Sure. I mean, there seems to be like maybe a misconception about the Venus Project or the Zeitgeist movement, where they seem to be advocating a very strongly cybernated society, which it probably scares a lot of people. Or it's, even though I know where they're coming from. It's kind of the software is obviously complementary to society. It's not dictating society. So, but yeah, a lot of people freak out when they see the idea of like one massive central computer which is kind of controlling everything. I mean, I think we've all seen enough science fiction movies with that kind of basic premise in it. So a lot of people, in my own experience, people that I know are quite a little bit alienated by the Venus Project, or those sort of that type of engineering design, top-down approach to society. Which is it's understandable, because a lot of people are, I suppose, we've been fed so much of just kind of science fiction horror stories, you know. So I think that's why one of the things I want to do in the Free Work Charter was rather than trying to design something from the top down, but to create a sort of foundation from the bottom up, you know, so that people can understand the basic ideas of how this world can exist like that. Rafi, you got something to say on that?
Well, if there's one thing I learned from the Venus Project or from Jacques Fresco, is to say I don't know when I don't know what the answer is of the question. So in this case, I don't know how it's going to play out, how it's going to be, what they're bringing, is it going to really be a use of it at the moment or in the future? I really don't know. And do I really need to know? All I know is that something has to be done. I'm doing it. That's it. That's all. And we'll see when the time comes.
Okay, great, absolutely.
Yeah.
Richard, anything on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Peter. And I think people take the Venus Project as rather having come about sort of asked about faith. And Nick's hit the nail on the head. It's all about the people. And in a money-free, resource-based society, basically we're still going to have councils and governments and companies and these sort of structures. But bearing in mind now, this is the important part, that the volunteers are only there because they choose to be there. They don't have to be there. And they will still nominate somebody to represent them, who we currently call the boss. But if the boss's aspirations don't suit society, bearing in mind that it's a voluntary society, and society is made up not just of the people who actually turn up at the factory or the warehouse or whatever, but their families, their children, their partners. If all those people, society with a big S now, don't agree with what we currently call staff are doing, then they won't do it, because they don't need to do it to get what they want. So I loved, somebody said there, local control with centralized coordination. That's a really important term. You know, the people will get what the people want, and if the people want to build super cities like Jacques Fresco has foreseen, then that's great. But plenty of people here in New Zealand, they just want to be left alone to live in the woods and grow their own potatoes, you know, and that's absolutely, completely up to you. You will be able to live however you want to live, and you can build, along with your society, whatever supporting structures you would like. But if you don't like it, chances are there's lots of other people who also don't like it, and then you won't get it. Nothing will be prescribed from the top down. Everything comes from underneath, you know, from what the people want. That's the massive difference, you know, which makes it, I mean, the potential there, it means it cannot fail, basically, you know. Brilliant. That's amazing. Colin.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant answer there. Rob James asks, will technology work effectively in a free world? I think probably a misconception there from a lot of people is, a common misconception is that the profit or the market system drives progress. It drives technological progress. So, you know, for instance, we all want to have better smartphones and all this sort of stuff, and this sort of the market pressure creates this desire to actually improve the technology all the time.
Yeah,
I think
I would
actually the reverse is actually the case. But maybe Nick, then would you like to answer that question? Then how will technology play out?
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's just say we don't know. But I would imagine, that as Colin said, it's going to do the opposite. If we are able to have access to research facilities, access to developing our own interests and developing our own skills, then it's only going to benefit, technological and scientific progress. Instead of, like these scientists or people who've got great ideas but are not allowed to put them into use or even research their ideas because they haven't got government grants or government funding, they will now live in a world of open access that they can get into a research centre, play about with different things, design different things, and just follow their love, their passion, their interests. So on that level, I think it's going to, technological progress is just going to go in leaps and bounds. Where it isn't here, it's always slowed down, by monetary concerns.
Sure, Richard, you got something to say on that?
No, that sounds great. Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Rafi, do you want to add anything to that there about technology?
Well, just to say that if we advance technologically this much within a competitive environment, how much further are we going to get in the cooperation with getting all the brains together and working together?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that reminds me of the open source movement, which is worth a lot of that we use. Probably this Hangout conversation is all open source created, which means it's basically created by large groups of people voluntarily and organically. There are some controls and checks and balances, yes, but for quality control. But basically, the likes of Linux operating system, which is like it's the most used operating system in the world because it's run on pretty much every web server that's going. And then obviously Android software, anything that's not an iPhone basically is running Android. This is like the biggest handheld operating system. Well, all these things were actually pretty much voluntary projects, which is like large groups of programmers all over the world who are basically contributing little bits here and there. And in all these kind of the technological things, the incentive is not the monetary incentive. The incentive is always to improve, because a lot of these guys who are these nerdy guys, who we imagine kind of don't have a girlfriend, or just sitting in front of a computer all day. I mean, these guys they want to try and improve. They want to challenge themselves. They want to create something better, and I think in general, all humans are like that. We all want to create something better. We all want to improve the lives we have. We don't just arrive into adulthood and say, right, I'm an adult now, I'm just going to sit back and do nothing else for the rest of my life. That's absurd. We all want to improve our environment, our lives, our own education, our own knowledge. It's just natural, it's a natural instinct. We're driven to do things like that. So I think technology, yes, as Nick said, will actually, and Rafi said, is actually going to be greatly accelerated once we take away the limitations of the monetary system. If you take like even the Apple phones as an example, where they hold back technology for later releases and that sort of stuff, so the technology doesn't get rolled out straight away. Okay, I think we're going to go for one more question, because we're really going way over time here. Here's a pretty good question now from Nitin Garg. That doesn't sound like a very nice name. Maybe it's a Klingon, I don't know. Okay, here we go. Start with Rafi. How can I help make this a reality? Maybe this is a good time to tell us a bit about your community center, Rafi.
How can you make this a reality? Actually, no. I wouldn't even talk about what I'm doing or the community is doing. How can you make this a reality? This is kind of a backhanded question, because if you haven't figured this out yet, is probably, I'm guessing, because you haven't You haven't gone to step 1 yet. Maybe we still haven't concluded that money has to go.
Okay.
I mean, that's my short version answer. I won't go into detail, not to go deep in the topic, but that's the best. So I'm sorry, that's probably wouldn't satisfy many people, my answer, but I would invite you guys to think about it.
Okay. Well, I suppose what he or she is asking that, yes, I agree it's a good idea, but how can I help make it happen? Is there some advice that you can give for helping make it happen?
Realizing it's a good idea. I mean, admitting or seeing that's a good idea is one thing, but realizing that money has to go. That if I still see a shred of hope and shred of hope in the monetary system, what that does is that this allows me to go deeper in the thought of money has to go. And it doesn't oblige me, it doesn't force me, it doesn't push me to do something. And then I come up with questions saying that, what can I do? I could come up with many things. I mean, you could, like I said before, you could go to the grocery store, ask the manager if you can help people to with their bags to the car. That's one thing you can do. You can you can go clean the streets. You can, if you have a space, gather tools, any tool, old tools, rusted tools, doesn't matter. Make a tool library, announce it to the community. I mean, you can do so many things. So asking the question, to me, it lacks, I think, maturity and seriousness and vision, and also realization that money has to go. Once I realize that, I open the door all of a sudden to possibilities and solutions. And if I tell you what to do and what you can do, but the door hasn't been opened yet, what does it? How does it help really? Because you have to open the door. Once you open the door, find your own solutions. Come to us, and we'll help you execute them. How about that?
Great. That's a great answer. Nick, how can we help? How can someone help make this a reality?
Yeah, I need to. Yeah, I think it's a nice name. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've asked myself, and how I answered it was basically by using economics. I don't mean monetary economics, but I just, as you probably gathered, from the conversation, that we think, the way to move forward is really to give people the right information, to spread information, to make sure people are exposed to the ideals and that they understand things. So basically, you're asking which is the most efficient way that I can do that. How can I make my voice loud so that more people can hear it? And then that's your question to ask yourself, and to see what skills you have and the things that you enjoy doing, so you'll be able to be a louder voice in the world, calling for a money-free society. That's how you're going to do it.
Okay, cool.
I would say it's almost a lovely potted example of what we're trying to do with the resource-based society as a whole, in that if you have something, and now, Nateen, you have something, you have some knowledge that many people don't have, or they don't realize they have it, but to you by yourself, it's of no use. The only time you're going to actually get any enjoyment, any benefit from that knowledge is by sharing it. And sometimes it's a bit scary, but keeping it to yourself, it's useless. You have to share it with other people. And it's scary at the beginning, I know, and we've all been through that. I think that's sort of why we're here today, because we all made fools of ourselves in the first place, and people thought we were mad, and they laughed at us and so on. But something kept us going, and the more you share it with people, the more complex and more difficult the questions about it get. But in getting those questions, you increase your own knowledge. And if you get stuck with one, then exactly like Colin's arranged here, there are places where you can go to answer those questions. And gradually, you become an instructor in the new paradigm, basically. But you have to go out and share it. I mean, in whatever circle suits you, whether that's in the pub or on a stage or at school presentations or online. If you don't want to go out and talk about it in public, there's plenty of places online where you don't even have to meet people. You don't have to go out and be afraid, you know. But it all comes from sharing, and then gradually you build up your own knowledge, and then in time, as Rafi touched on, you'll know what to do. You know, it's almost a self-generating process, really. But in the first instance, start sharing, and then you'll realise which points you haven't got yet. You know, I guess that's community working at its best. You know, collectively we can come up with solutions for everything, but alone we don't stand a chance. Yeah. Colin.
But it fits in nicely, even with the whole philosophy is, what can I do to help make this reality? You can do whatever the hell you can. Whatever you're good at, whatever way you think you can apply yourself to actually to make this happen. And there's an infinite number of ways that we can do that. For me personally, I do a bit of web and graphic design, and I record music and that sort of stuff. These are skills that I kind of regularly throw into towards this effort. And I know all you guys are doing the very same thing. You know, whatever way you do it, you guys are politically inclined. Rafi is very community spirit orientated. Everyone has an angle. You know, once you realize where it is we're trying to get to and what it is we're trying to do, then really it's a matter of actually forming your own approach to that and actually deciding how best can I use my talents to bring that forward, you know. And yeah, of course, I echo what Richard said there. It's not always easy to broach the subject with family and loved ones, you know, because myself, it's cost me quite a few friends of my own, even just to going through this sort of stuff. But I mean, that's part of my own personal process, you know. But it's difficult getting these ideas across to people initially. Of course, it will get easier when it starts becoming more. Well, we're not even in the alternative bracket yet. We haven't reached that far yet, but hopefully we'll start getting into alternative brackets. And then
I think we will need to
there. But we're getting there. So I think the important thing is do whatever you can. Yeah, absolutely. Everything, no effort is wasted. Whatever you're doing is grand. Is great. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, that one is done. Okay, Luciano says, amazing chat, guys. And please be known that information is all that we are doing here. So let's keep sharing these upfront concerns and spreading it as much as we can. Most people are not able to wake up by themselves, and it's part of our role to help them. Well, this is what we're doing. We're helping people to sort of come to new realizations. Ted Howard says we need to make social networks. Not really sure what you mean by that, Ted, but I guess what you're talking about is finding ways to get people to connect together. Yeah, there's a number of websites like that. I was working on one as well, and it's difficult to get these things going, but a really good web where everyone's connected and people can find each other. I mean, I was even thinking something in terms like almost like a dating agency, or kind of like that, where you're matching people, you're matching skills together, the people in same areas. Obviously, well, you can use it for dating if you want, but the idea is that it's a way for people to connect in the real world, because there's no substitute for.
Yeah, it would be a good idea, an RBE or money-free world app, like the gay ones and the dating ones. They've got these, what they called, I've forgotten the name of them. It's very couple of famous ones, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. But
they tell you where the nearest geographic, sweetheart is, potential sweetheart is. That'd be great if you had Grinder in it. Grinder, I'm thinking of. So if you had a money-free world app, when I started campaigning, locally, I found there's a guy just one street away from me who'd been spending 2 years promoting the idea, and I didn't even know him.
Yeah.
So if you got one of those apps, that's a really good
idea. Yeah. So let's get
good idea. Yeah.
That is a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're pretty much wrapped up, guys. Anyone else got anything you want to add to that? Rafi, Richard, right, go ahead.
Yeah, just in summing up there, Colin, I mean, this has been a fantastic exercise. It's a relatively new one for us. But just sort of going back on the team's question about how can we make this a reality, it is difficult at the beginning, but you know, we've had 18 questions here this morning, and I mean, I don't know how it was for you guys, but really, they're a piece of cake. This is easy stuff. And this is what I've found in entering the political arena. I found myself during the general election on stage with members of parliament, with cabinet ministers. You know, these are the people that are running this country, and yet I had the easiest job because all I had to do was tell the truth. And I haven't seen any of us sweating. You know, nobody has sweated here today. None of us have had to make anything up. No one's had to lie. No one's had to dodge any questions, because this is a piece of cake, this stuff. And from the team's point of view, keep going, mate, because this is easy. This is the easiest thing you've ever had to do. We've got the easiest job on the planet, you know. Fantastic. Yeah, great. Let's keep going.
Well said,
Absolutely.
Richard.
Well said, yeah. That's very true, yeah. I've never thought of it that way yet. That in the political arena, then all you have to do is speak the truth, yeah. Absolutely. Well, of course, most people in the political arena don't really like the truth very much. Nitin actually replied saying, "Thank you, guys. It's an Indian name and it means principle." I think.
Nice.
Well, there you go. Cool. We have one member activated. Listen, I think we're going to wrap it up there. We've run over 2 hours now. It's been absolutely fantastic. I hope we've helped some people there. This will all be available on YouTube after. It should be all, more or less straight away. So if anyone's still listening, that's fantastic. Thanks a million for listening, and please remember to keep sharing the word around. I want to say thanks a million to Rafi Oneness there, who's in Quebec in Canada. He's doing a wonderful job. Looks lovely and sunny there as well, Rafi.
Yes, it is.
And thanks to Richard in New Zealand and Nick Tapping in UK, both guys from the Money Free Party. You guys have a website, Money Free?
Yeah, if you Google Money Free Party, you'll find it. There's a few websites.
Okay, yeah, absolutely, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And so it's actually on the subject of Money Free Parties. And in what countries would I find a Money Free Party, or where are they? Or
Well, you've got New Zealand, you've got UK. There's probably we've got little groups, but not registered as a party, you know, in different countries around the world, and they're sort of popping up even without us knowing. In fact, you know, we found a Money Free Party Sri Lanka earlier on this week, you know. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, Nitin actually also just replied there again, saying, "What's the best way to get in touch with you guys?" Okay, that's good. Well, obviously, I have the Free World Charter website. You can Google that, or you just go straight to freeworldcharter.org. Would be great, Nitin, and anyone else is interested to follow the progress there. Also, if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that'll be fantastic. So I really hope to do this again, actually, because it's been very enjoyable. I don't know about you guys, but let's do something like this again. The theme today was "What is a free world?" So we've kind of tried to cover all the basic ideas there now. So I think we've done a pretty good job. Thanks a million, everyone. Thanks for joining. See you again very soon, hopefully.
Yes.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you. Well done.
Great.
Let the questions come in also.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. Well, let's do this again soon, and we'll talk more questions. Bye.
Thanks everybody for your questions.
Excellent. Bye, everyone.